Alright, what's going on, everyone? This video we are looking at the single game showdown for tonight between the Patriots and the Jets. Obviously not on a very exciting game to watch, but maybe it'll be at least somewhat more entertaining than last night's game, which ended up being a 35-point loss for the Tampa Bay Bucks in Antonio Brown's debut. But nevertheless, we have a lot to talk about. Some injuries on the Jets side, some injuries on the Patriots side. Could see Sony Michel back. Looks like Crowder might be back, so decent amount to talk about, at least to shift through some injuries. And let's get into it. So as always, appreciate if you guys hit the like button on the video, subscribe if you have not already. Follow me on Twitter if you want. It's at the DFS process. Looking to have a pretty good night tonight. It wasn't a very good Sunday, as got like Dalvin Cook right. That was like one of the main things. And then just kind of got a lot of bland scores, nothing really over the top. Loved Marvin Jones. Had that touchdown in the second. That was one of his first targets of the game, but didn't do much after that, and Julio was okay, but wasn't as good as I thought he would be. Just kind of a lot of guys in the teens, not that many in the 20s besides Dalvin Cook. So hopefully tonight's better. I know a lot of people, it was pretty ugly, especially with Justin Jackson, as he was super popular in cash, but pretty wild Sunday. But let's get into Monday. So let's look at just going through the salaries right now at captain. You have Cam Newton as the most expensive guy on the slate. He's 19.8. He has been having a pretty poor season, to say the least. He has thrown just 2 touchdown passes and 7 interceptions. Now, that is extremely hard to do as a starting quarterback who's played in like 6 or 7 games already this year. I know he's been hurt in a couple, but he's been pretty ugly. It's been pretty ugly for him throwing the football. He's been getting it done with his legs, at least. He has 6 rushing touchdowns on the year. He's lost a couple fumbles. So overall, it's been a pretty ugly season, but this is a spot for him to get back on track after a string of pretty tough defenses with the Bills and the 49ers and the Broncos. So pretty easy matchup here against the Jets. I think Newton is going to have a pretty big game with his legs, at least. With his arm, who knows, because he's dealing with so many injuries. If you're looking for a guy to pair him with, you can look at the snap counts from last week. They really ran 3 guys in wide receiver sets with Bird, Myers, and Olszewski. Probably butchered that, but he played about 65% of the snaps. Didn't get any targets or anything like that, but really could be a 2-man show between Bird and Myers. And if you're looking to play Cam Newton at captain, which I think a lot of people will do, both of those guys are pretty reasonable stack options, as Myers is. In the flex, he is like 9K, and then Bird is a bit cheaper. He's only like 6'9" or something, or 6,800 for Bird. So that's like 2 guys that you could pair Newton with as like the only guys that are running wide receiver routes, or at least they did last week, and got some targets. It looks like Harris is questionable. If he misses this game, it looks like they could activate Sony Michel before the game, who is still listed as IR on Draftkings, but he's returned to practice a couple days ago. I think he is going to probably be active, especially with the uncertainty surrounding Harris. Could get some snaps, and he's only 2,200. So if he is active, that would be one of the better value plays of the slate. And then looking at some other guys, like I don't think I want to play Harris that much. He's 10-2. He's really expensive, especially if Michel is back. Then could see a little bit more of a split workload between the two. Sam Darnold is doubtful, injured his throwing arm in practice. No surprise there. So we're going to look at another start for Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco started a couple games this year. He didn't do anything special in either one, as 1 touchdown pass, 1 interception. One good thing you can say is that Gilmore is once again out for this game, so at least he's going to have at least some reasonable options to throw to on the outside. Like if Gilmore is active, he's probably going to shut down one of the receivers, but he's inactive tonight, so... And he's getting his weapons back. Crowder is expected to be back, although he's questionable. He said he's trending towards playing, so that would be a pretty big news for the Jets, because he has been their best receiver every single game that he suited up for. He has double-digit targets. He's been the only consistent option for them in the passing game. So definitely think you could play Crowder and Flacco if you wanted to stack them together, or just play Crowder by himself, because Flacco, even if he throws a couple touchdowns, it's not like you're worried about him going crazy with his legs or anything like that. So, and he is somewhat expensive, especially if we play Cam Newton at captain. It's going to be tough to fit in everybody, but definitely like Crowder at his price point. Patriots defense is 7,400. I just don't think I'll get to them. Like, I'd rather go to. You could go with some receivers that are cheaper, like Bird. You have the Jets receivers that are cheaper with Denzel Mims. He played quite a bit of snaps if you want to take a look at it. Last week, they are getting Crowder back tonight, and looks like Brashard Perriman has also been activated. So there's two guys that are going to be coming in there, and I think they're probably going to run a lot of three wide receiver sets between Crowder, Mims, and Perriman. But last week, Mims had a really good first drive. He had like 2 catches or something like that, at least in the first quarter, and then he didn't get targeted the rest of the game. But he played a bunch, 96%. You had Jeff Smith. I think he's going to be out of the rotation for the most part. Same with the other Smith, and same with Barrios at least I think he's probably going to get like at least half the amount of snaps that he's been getting with Perriman back and Crowder back. So speaking of Perriman, he's only 4,200. He has been, when he's in there, they give him a lot of snaps. Like if you look back to week 7, which was the last week that he was active, he missed 1 game with a concussion, missed some previous games earlier in this year, but when he was active, he played 95% of the snaps back in week 7. He's only 4,200. Flacco can't get much worse than Darnold has been throwing the football, so it's not like he's getting a big downgrade going with the backup. So I think Mims looks in play. I also think Perriman looks a little bit better. He might get overlooked a bit because people might just go to Mims at a similar price point. And then with the Jets kicking game, it's going to be Sergio Castillo. Going to be kicking again after Ficken is still out or doubtful tonight. So you could go to him as a cheap kicker. The Patriots also might not even have a kicker on Draftkings active because if Nick Folk is out, I do not think their backup is on here unless they add him in late. So besides Castillo looking under 3,000, you have both Frank Gore and Sony Michel. Frank Gore is just pretty wild that he's still getting double-digit carries every single game, although he's done absolutely really nothing. No touchdowns on the season. He's averaging barely over 3.5 yards, not even 3.5 yards per carry this season. He's just been really bad, but they're still giving him the touches, which is surprising, and it kind of just takes out Perrine to play. He's 5,800. I guess you could look to him, but if he's splitting work with Frank Gore, it's always tough, especially against a team that doesn't run the football that well. And then Chris Herndon has just been a disappearing act this season. He's done absolutely nothing. And some of it's to blame with the quarterback situation, but some of it's to blame just for himself. Has done nothing. The one catch that he did have last week, he fumbled it. Don't think he's in a really good place, especially with them being healthy at receiver now. I don't think he's going to get that much work. And I guess Sony Michel is like the other guy that you would probably consider playing because he's still going to get some work if he's active, especially with Harris questionable. If he ends up playing and Harris is out, then he would get a lot of work. But at 2,200, I think he looks like one of the better value plays, assuming he's in. So looking at some potential builds, I think Cam Newton at captain is going to be a pretty standard build. A lot of people are going to go to that in cash at least. Flacco looks strong, although it's kind of tough to fit both of them, especially if you play Cam Newton at captain. So instead, I might do Crowder at 11-2, who just looks really good, has probably the same, if not more upside than Flacco. You could go Cam Newton with pair him with Myers or Bird, see how much we have left. But I do like Perriman at 4,200. I think you could look at a cheap kicker like the Jets could get stalled out inside the red zone and just go with a lot of field goals like they did last week, or they had kicked 3 field goals against the Chiefs because they couldn't punch it in, and that's kind of been the story for them all year. And now 5,700 left, you could look at maybe Bird to pair with Cam Newton, and then 4,600 left. It looks just missing out on Mims. You could look at Burkhead, although if Sony Michel is in, then it's gonna be tough to kind of trust. If both Michel and Harris are in, then it's gonna be tough because they have so many running backs now. But instead of Bird, then you could easily go up to Myers, who looks like the better bet to at least get into the end zone, maybe, or at least to kind of have a bigger game just because he's a bigger receiver than Bird. Is kind of more of a deep threat. But this looks pretty good. You kind of get it balanced, although you got to get one of the Jets kickers in there, and then you kind of have both of the receivers that could do some damage, especially if they end up trailing in this game, which is probably likely. And then you got Cam Newton at captain. So this one looks strong to me. I think that one is probably going to be the one that a lot of people go to. If you want to be different, then I think playing a guy like Flacco at captain with no with no real concern that he's going to get that much ownership at captain. There's Gilmore is out for this game, so at least it's a softer matchup for him, and he's at home, so at least he has something going for him. I think just to be a bit different, he could do that and play Flacco at captain. You still probably want to get to Cam Newton, and then in this case, you might have to be forced to go with Bird, be forced to go with Mims or Perriman, or both of them. It might be tough to get to Crowder. But let's see if I do play both of those guys. And then you have 6,700. James White hasn't really done anything this year. So you just have so many running backs, it's tough for them to trust one guy. But I think the one guy that I would take a shot on is Michelle if he's in at 2,200. He's just super cheap and could get some work with Harris being banged up. So you still have 4,500 left. He could get up to a $9,500 plus player. Like, just going to miss out on getting to Myers, but you could go him and go back to Perriman. Really kind of focusing, it's kind of similar to what we had in the previous build, except you have, instead of going with the Jets kicker Castillo, you go with both of the wide receivers that are going to be running a lot of routes in Bird and Myers and pair them with Cam Newton. And then you pair Flacco with Perriman, and you still got Sonny Michel in there, so I think I'm just going to kind of focus on some of the passing game. I don't think I really want to pick between Frank Gore and Pirine. So he's been okay. He's getting some work. Could get you into the end zone. So if you wanted to play him instead of going with one of the wide receivers, I guess that's fine. But they have been splitting some of the work. And actually Gore's outsnapped him or got more carries than him last week. So you could look to him if you wanted to, but I think I'm probably going to stick with going Cam Newton at captain just because it gives you a lot of upside, especially if he gets a rushing touchdown that gives you like 9 points in the captain spot. I like Flacco, but it's going to be tough because I do prefer to get to Crowder, assuming he's in. I do like Perriman as a cheap play, and then I think I will pair Cam Newton with Jacoby Myers just because he got 10 targets. Cam Newton only threw the football 25 times, and Myers had a 40% target share last week, so he's getting the football. They only have like 2 guys at receiver that have NFL experience, and that is limited to in Myers and Bird. But this one, I think these 4 guys are going to be probably what I try to build around. On DraftKings at least. Let's go over to Fanduel. All right, over on Fanduel, Cam Newton at captain is probably going to be popular, or MVP is going to be popular. He's 17,000. Everybody's probably going to try to get to him at least. So, no problem there. If you want to be different, obviously go different at captain or go different at MVP. Darnold is out. Crowder is playable. I like him quite a bit on FanDuel too. Harris is too expensive at 13.5, especially if Michel is back. Flacco looks fine too at 12.5. Is pretty affordable there. And then Jacoby Myers is 11K, and Bird is all the way down to, probably missed him. Bird is down to 9K, so $2,000 difference. Like, I think Myers might get more ownership, but depending on how much salary you have left over, I think Bird is playable. Barrios is going to be tough to get to now that their top 3 receivers are all in and healthy. He's probably going to be the 4th guy now. I think Pirine looks okay at 9,500. And then you got Mims at 8K, and you got Perriman at 7K. I think Perriman might get overlooked a bit, and he's been back, but it's his first game back after missing one. I think Flacco and him, I mean, he's a big guy. And last year at the end of the season with Tampa Bay, he had some big games with the injuries that they had to Godwin and Evans at the end of the year. He kind of made a name for himself and kind of got some money in free agency. But he's definitely going to be getting a lot of snaps now that he's back in there. And I don't really want to trust anybody else. Like Herndon, I'm done with. Like, haven't played him at all, really, except for one time earlier this year. But he's just not getting any looks or really a lot of volume at all. So, looking at like builds, like Cam Newton at captain is, I keep saying captain. MVP is going to be the guy that a lot of people go to. I have no problem with that. I probably will try to get to Flacco just because he's only 12.5. And I think he is probably going to be the second highest scorer on Jets player besides like Crowder. And then I'd probably try to get to Crowder. And then I could see if I want to pair Cam Newton with Jacoby Myers. Then 5,500. I mean, you're going to be short a bit, so you might be forced to go instead with like Bird at 9,000. So you can maybe get to Perriman. And then you're kind of going Flacco with both his receivers. I think going 3 Jets and 2 Patriots will be different because a lot of people will go with 3 Patriots. Although the Patriots offense side, like, it could all come from Cam Newton if he just runs in a couple touchdowns. So that's something to look at. And then you have Sonny Michel, who is 7,500. He's a little bit more expensive than he is on, a lot more expensive than he is on DraftKings, but I guess he will be interesting, especially if he stays with that IR tag for most of the day until the close to game time. But on Fanduel, I think I'll probably try to get to these three at least, and then try to figure out between the rest of the two. But definitely Cam Newton. I think Flacco looks strong on Fanduel, and I like Crowder a lot. So that's it for me. That's the video. There's some things to talk about because there's some injuries returning players on both sides. But overall, that's it for me. Thank you for watching, and best of luck tonight.